Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to global audience joining this webinar. My name is Hari Vyakanan. I am VP of Global Alliances for YASH Technologies and will be your MC for the webinar. Thank you all for taking time today and attend this QAD webinar focused on F&B industry. We will start this webinar, but before that, I just wanted to mention a few housekeeping items related to Zoom interface. You would all be able to see Q&A section right at the bottom of the screen. And if you want to raise questions anytime, feel free to do so. And we will be answering those questions depending on the question, whether it is independently or together, reserved towards the end. Otherwise, we will answer it in the Q&A section itself. There is also chat available for all of you in case of any technical difficulties. My colleague Teja, she will be helping you with that. All right, great. Thank you all for joining again, and we will start the webinar with quick introductions to QAD and YASH. And this will be followed by keynote from Steve Dombrowski, Director of Capital Markets QAD, and followed with YASH QAD practice overview by NR, my colleague, and practice lead at QAD and at YASH. And this will be followed with Q&A. Without any further delay, we will get started with YASH corporate overview. And next slide, please. So as you can see, we have 5 points listed at the bottom of the screen. And these are the tenets of our company to become a provider of customer-centric transformational IT solutions and services globally. Next slide. YASH Technologies has been in business for 25 years. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary this year. We have 6,000 trained and talented employees worldwide. We have 50 verticals where we focus our centers of excellence with over 40 campuses globally and headquartered in East Moline, Illinois. We have a very strong presence worldwide in 6 continents. And we have strong and mature alliances, of which QAD is one of them. And it is a strategic alliance for us. We are partner of choice for 450 plus organizations, including many Fortune 500 companies worldwide again. Next slide. This gives you a quick overview of our global reach and where our customers are. Next slide. To mention a few of our customers globally, where we are partner of choice, as well as mid-level customers that we have. As you can see, many large customers such as John Deere, Caterpillar, Merck, Deutsche Bank, who happen to be using YASH since several years. And we have several other mid-sized companies as well. I'll move on to the next slide and invite Steve to pick up the thread from here. Steve, over to you.
Thanks, Harry. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Steve Dombrowski. Like Harry said, I am the Director of Consumer Markets for QAD. We are a partner with YASH, and we are very happy to be jointly presenting to you today on how QAD and YASH are good partners for your food and beverage manufacturing business. I'm going to kick it off by introducing a colleague of mine, Gary Koltukian, who's going to take us through some history information of QAD, where we fit in the marketplace, and then I'll take it back over and we'll start the main part of the presentation of some of the key differentiators of us in the market. So Gary, over to you.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, a short word about QAD. QAD is a leading provider of next generation manufacturing and supply chain solutions in the cloud. At QAD, we understand that today's global manufacturers are facing ever-increasing disruptions. And in order to survive and thrive in the face of these disruptions, manufacturers have to be able to innovate, pivot, and change business models at unprecedented rates of speed. So that's why at QAD, we call such companies adaptive manufacturing enterprises. So QAD's adaptive manufacturing ERP helps customers in the automotive, life sciences, consumer products, food and beverage, high tech and industrial manufacturing industries. We help companies in those verticals rapidly adapt to change and innovate for competitive advantage. Excuse me, QAD was founded in 1979. It's headquartered in Santa Barbara, California, and we have more than 30 offices globally. And over 2,000 manufacturing companies have deployed QAD solutions, including enterprise resource planning, ERP, demand and supply chain planning, global trade and transportation execution, and also quality management. So thanks for listening. And Stephen, you can take it over.
Thanks, Gary. I really appreciate it. That was a great overview. We've been in business quite a long time at QAD, and along with what Harry told you about YASH, we're a very good fit because we are focused on helping companies get better, help companies challenge the industry's issues in the marketplace today. You know, I've spent a lot of time in these industries, almost 40 years, and I spent a good number of time in actual food and beverage manufacturing at a food and beverage manufacturer. And then I've done a lot of work in many of the vertical segments. And years ago, you know, if a customer changed an order, if a raw material didn't come in on time, you know, we considered that a disruption. Well, I'm probably telling you folks who are on the call today, and those who might watch this in the future, you know, that's the normal day-to-day issues of the food and beverage manufacturing business. That stuff's going to happen. The disruptions are things like what we're facing today, coming out of a pandemic, ongoing transportation issues that actually started long before the pandemic even started. We were having transportation issues in the United States and globally before COVID hit. So these are not necessarily new issues just caused by COVID. I think what COVID did is it helped highlight some of the problems that we're getting ready to show through. So there's tons of them out there. So throughout this presentation, we're going to throw up a couple poll questions for you. And we're going to start with one next to gauge how disruptions are impacting your business. So if we can get that poll question up, that'd be great. So have you had to alter your business practices and processes due to COVID-19? And I'm actually going to adapt that question and say, are we even beyond that with other disruptions? So we have a couple people. We have pretty much a nice consensus here of about 100%. Yes, you have. So regardless whether you've had to have a shutdown, you've had to stop operations, some part of your business has been impacted by these disruptions. So this is really good information, and we're going to take this through this presentation and walk you through some of the things where we think that we can help, not just with the issues you're facing today, but what is perceived to be the problems in the future. So like Gary said, we are focused on 6 manufacturing verticals at QAD, and we have a very good presence in food and beverage manufacturing globally. We have well over 500 sites, 85 countries, couple hundred customers in the food and beverage business. And we span over 6 different vertical segments, anywhere from shelf-stable foods to frozen foods, fresh foods, refrigerated foods, bakeries, confections, candy, coffee and tea, alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. So we've pretty much touched all areas of the food and beverage manufacturing business. Now this slide here takes us into a family kitchen, and there really isn't a grocery store aisle that you could go through and not see a product made by a QAD customer. So this scene here in the kitchen is pointing to different areas of some of our companies, our customers who make bread, they make candies, they make cakes, they make refrigerated products. And this slide is simply to illustrate that we understand the business of food and beverage manufacturing. And so does our partner YASH, and that's why we're here today, to kind of take you through some of these issues. Now, Gary used a few words in his introduction of QAD: adaptive, effective. What we're trying to help manufacturers achieve is that effective, adaptable enterprise, because things are coming at you so quick today. There's supply chain issues. I've never thought in my whole career of dealing with the supply chain that I would hear everyday commonplace people walking up and down the street talking about the supply chain. We have governors, presidents, world leaders. We have everywhere you turn, you have talk show hosts who typically talk about the latest Hollywood gossip are actually talking about the supply chain. For those of us who are in this industry, I think it's a very monumental time, because we're finally getting the credit we're due in terms of dealing with this really interesting industry and subject matter, that people are really understanding the impact. So if you want to be that adaptable, effective manufacturing enterprise, especially in food and beverage, you need to be market driven. You have to be aware of what's happening in the marketplace, because what you have to realize is your customers have customers. It's kind of like the supply chain. You know, the supply chain is made up of a lot of supply chain. You may have a bunch of supply chains internally in your own business. It's the same with the market. You're trying to meet what your customers are trying to do, but they're trying to meet what the consumers are doing. And the consumers today are just pretty much going crazy. They're unpredictable. If you use forecasting for your demand planning, I don't think historical forecasting is going to be an issue for the next 5 to 6 years, simply because it's hard to forecast historically when things are changing. Another thing you need to do is you need to be compliant. You have to have the regulatory requirements for the food and beverage industry that are being dictated by governments, which are being dictated by consumers in the marketplace. Now, what people tend to forget is there are two supply chains. There's the physical and the digital, and these need to be synchronized. So not only do you have to be synchronized throughout your organization in terms of top to bottom, you need to be synchronized with those digital and physical supply chain together. Now, some of the differentiators that we have with QAD is we have 5 key issues where we think we can help you achieve success. Starting with the cloud, because today, and especially through COVID, you notice that things in terms of communication had to be driven with technology, and the cloud is the way to go today. Trade and promotions. You can't succeed in this industry without promoting your business. Your supply chain, as I just mentioned, needs to be connected. And you have to have quality management, including serialization and traceability from top to bottom throughout the enterprise and throughout the organization. And your business processes need to be integrated with the solutions that you have. It's one thing to employ a software solution. It's another thing to actually have them integrated with the actual processes. And you need to be able to adapt and alter the business processes. Some people make the mistake of changing the business processes to be around the software. The software is simply a tool to help you achieve your goals. I joke with people that years ago, if you looked at the way they built houses and some of the tools that they used a manual hammer, they used a screwdriver that you have to turn. Today, everything is automatic. Nail guns, automatic screwdrivers, they can get the job done faster. However, the process really hasn't changed much. They're not building the roof first. They're still digging the foundation first. So you have to make sure your business processes are set, and then you can adapt your solutions to meet your business processes. So we have customers that have done that. We have customers, when we talk about the cloud, for example, In food and beverage manufacturing, let's face it, most of your businesses are low margin businesses. In the industries I worked directly with, we had these issues. So when you talk about the cloud is important because it helps free up your IT resources. So we have another poll question up here and asking you about your IT resources. Are your IT resources able to keep up with what is going on today? So we'll take a minute to get this. So we have a few people coming in. Looks like about 2/3 of you are saying no. And I'm really not surprised by that number because, again, IT staffs in food and beverage are typically low margin businesses, but they're also doing other things. One of our customers, the purchasing manager, is actually the person who runs the IT group. And he says, many times, Steve, some of my purchasing functions falter because I have to manage the ERP system and vice versa. So the cloud will help you because that management goes to QAD of your ERP system. The cloud will help you free up those IT resources to start looking at digital manufacturing solutions and things that can help the rest of managing through the value chain. Some of the other benefits some of our customers have received is the reduced on-hand inventory. Inventory is your most expensive asset next to your manufacturing equipment. And especially in food and beverage, all manufacturers have to deal with inventory, but in food manufacturing and beverage manufacturing, think about it. Somewhere, somehow, you're probably starting out with a perishable ingredient and you need to deal with that quickly or else that's complete waste. And managing those inventories, making sure they're in the right place at the right time. When I was with one of the leading food manufacturers in the United States, one of our most expensive costs was the redeployment of inventories because we initially shipped them to the wrong warehouse or the wrong DC. So a DC in New York would be short product, but yet the DC in LA would have extra product. So what do? Do you ship that across the country, or do you make new stuff and take a loss on the stuff that's sitting in inventory? Those are tough decisions, and each decision that you make costs some sort of money. So our customers are being able to reduce inventories. They're able to reduce freight costs. They're able to increase accuracy of customer service, but also customer invoicing. So these are some of the benefits that we've seen across the marketplace. I mentioned in one of the differentiators, quality. Now, quality, in my opinion, is the #1 job of a food and beverage manufacturer. It sits hand in hand with making sure that you can stay in business with your profits. Because let's face it, if you put bad product out there and it doesn't meet the integral quality that people are expecting, people are not going to buy your things. Most importantly, if you end up having a recall, that could be detrimental to your business that you never get back. So you need to make sure that not only can you track, not only can you trace, but again, it's back to where I mentioned the digital and physical supply chains. That goes hand in hand with everything you do. There's the physical pieces and then there's the digital pieces, and you need to be in sync. So you need to make sure that the information you're getting is accurate, reliable, and it's not out of date. Because sometimes if you are, you're going to run into an issue that could bite you down the road. So I threw up the slide with 5 differentiators. So let's start talking about them in a little more detail. Let's figure out kind of where, Steve, what are you talking about? So the QAD Cloud, let's talk about where that's going to help you. I mentioned that most food and beverage manufacturers run pretty tight ship with their IT resources, and you need to respond quickly. You need to respond to issues with your customers. Well, it's not going to happen if your system is not reliable. And a lot of times with on-premise systems, we do run into issues where there are some downtime. And that's the last thing you need, especially when you're processing a lot of orders and you're dealing with perishable materials. And let's face it, everybody has to eat. So a consumer walking into a grocery store or buying a food product online, they're going to want that product now. If it's not there, Are they not going to eat? Probably not. I know everybody has their favorite food products out there, but let's face it, if you need a loaf of bread and your favorite manufacturer of bread isn't on the shelf, you're going to buy another company's loaf of bread. So we need to make sure that our systems can handle all the transactions and all the issues that we need, and the cloud gives you that stability because it frees up your IT resources to do other things. But there's also some other benefits. There's communication issues, and it enables to help you deal with those demand patterns of the consumers that are changing, the way supply chains, and not just the supply chain, but the value chain is increasing in food and beverage. People can buy products from places they never did before. There are some places where you can go to a gas station and actually buy a T-bone steak out of a vending machine. Whoever thought that would happen? So being able to have your operations on the cloud gives you the flexibility and the adaptability to deal with these changing marketplace issues. And at the same time, being able to manage your inventories, get them to the right place, and get them to the right time at the right time, and manage your customer service to be as high it can possibly be. So that's one of the key differentiators here. Now, another one we need to talk about is promotions and trade activity management. You can't go into a store today without seeing a sale, and you can't go online without seeing some sort of sale. Many of you, I'm sure, have shopped online, and when you log into somebody's site, they say today 25% off if you use the code, YASH is great. Type that in, you get 25% off. Wow, that's a promotion. You can't do business without a promotion. And people are becoming very, very creative with these promotions. I was in the grocery store not too long ago, and I happened to buy a gallon of milk. Your typical, hey, honey, on your way home from work, can you bring home a gallon of milk? Well, I'm buying a gallon of milk, and on the milk is a coupon for 25 cents off a pack of cookies. So I said, that's interesting. I never knew that this milk company, made cookies. So I went to the cookie aisle. It was another way of drawing me to another part of the store. And I looked at the pack of cookies they were advertising, and sure enough, there it is. And I looked at the back of the milk, and I looked at the back of the cookies, and nowhere on those packages did it talk about any sort of interaction between those two firms. They weren't owned by the same conglomerate. They're not the same company. But what they did is they got together and they said, hey, cookies and milk. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, and maybe we can increase both our businesses. So again, we need to be creative in terms of how we draw the consumers to our customers that we serve as manufacturers. And there's a number of ways. We have a trade activity management package, which will help you do that. Our customer management opportunities and packages allows you to enable with collaboration with customers. Integrated supply chain planning from top to bottom. Today's value chain, like I said, is exploding more than it ever has. And there are many more places for consumers to buy product, and there are many more places where manufacturers have to source their products. So integrating that demand supply chain planning allows you to manage those sites. At the same point in time, because things are changing so quick, you really need to make sure, especially with perishable goods, that your inventories are accurate. So QAD warehousing helps you manage those internal operations of your warehousing right up to the minute and to the second. So speaking of which, let's talk about integrated demands and supply chain planning and S&OP processes. There's certain things through industry and through time that come and go. There are certain fads, there are certain terms that people use, and then it goes away and then comes back. And S&OP is one of them. S&OP really started taking off in the late 90s. And then as we moved into the 2000s, it kind of went away. It's the same thing with managing inventory. Years ago, we dealt with safety stocks and economic order quantities. And then we moved into just in time. And then COVID hit and we said, wow, just in time really might not be the thing to do. So now we're looking at a hybrid. It's the same thing with S&OP and integrating demand and supply chain planning. They have to be synchronized, and the digital and physical supply chain need to be synchronized. And you need a process. And you know, when you talk about S&OP, if you think about it, it's not even a process. It has to be a mindset, and it has to be throughout the entire organization, through your entire ecosystem, not just your business, but your partners, your sale partners, the people that are buying your products, and the people that are supplying you the things to make your products. So that entire ecosystem needs to be connected. So today's business is driving us to be creative and be very efficient in terms of demand and supply chain planning. You have to be agile, you have to be nimble. If I'm selling next day to somebody in California and I'm a producer in New York, is it feasible? Am I going to go and build a $500 million manufacturing plant in every major location where I need to satisfy customers? No, it's insane. That'll put us out of business. So contract manufacturing is one of the ways where people are trying to work around that today. And manufacturers are employing contract manufacturers, or as we call them in the industry, co-packers, to manage those processes and help get those products to the people that need them faster. So through managing your supplier information, managing transactions, and having those with electronic data interfaces helps that. Manufacturing, digging into in production execution, and managing all the assets that you have. Downtime is dollars. Downtime is profits. QAD has enterprise asset management functionality that can help you keep your operations up and running. And then, of course, when we talk about the actual supply chain planning function, it starts with forecasting. Now, world-class forecasting is somewhere in the 55 to 65% range. Think about it. Think about in our day-to-day jobs, if we had the luxury of being right only 55% of the time, that would be pretty good. Well, in forecasting, if you get to that level, that's considered excellent. But in our industry and as food manufacturers, we need to get a little better, and we need to get that item location forecasting accurate, because like I mentioned early on, that redeployment of inventories is costing you a fortune. And it's costing, when you talk about people trying to become sustainable enterprises, it's wasting food. And there's a lot of uses that we can put into that. Quality. Quality is a big issue to me. Food safety is a big issue. I remember there was a comedian years ago who said, if you go to a convenience store and you're hungry on a Saturday night at 12:01 a.m. and you look at a package of snack cakes and it expired the day before, are you going to die? Are you going to get sick? Is that 1 minute going to make a difference? Well, to believe it or not, in some products it does. And food quality and food safety should be the #1 priority of every food company. And the people that are driving these regulations today, it's not just the governments. They're getting pressure from the consumer. The consumers today are dictating how we move as an industry in terms of managing quality. Customers today want to know where their products are coming from. They want to know what the ingredients are. And I'm not just talking about the food and the drink. I'm talking about the containers they're packaged in, the ink that's on the bottles, the ink that's on the packaging or the boxes. They want to know where they're sourced. They want to know who they're sourced. Are we dealing with countries that do ethical business? Are we dealing with companies that treat their workers right? Are we doing sustainable practices? Those are the things that consumers are looking for today. And as manufacturers, in addition to providing safe and quality food, you need to be able to prove to them that we're meeting and those products are meeting the desires that they are looking for. So we need to have serialized products. We need to have item attributes where we can go in and put and show to the consumer that we're ethically sourcing our coffee beans, our cocoa, our milk, our meat. We can show that. Track and traceability, God forbid there's a recall. You need to be able to quickly find out the source, because you have to remember something. When you produce a product with your name on it, as a consumer, because that's one luxury we have, we're consumers of our own products, and we are able to be in the mind of the consumers because we're both. And when your name is on a product, that carries all the way through, not just when the customer of yours, the grocery store, sells it, but when that consumer buys it, all the way to the point where they throw out the packaging and the product is done. Your name is on it, so it's your responsibility to make sure you can handle all the issues that could compromise your food products. That includes transportation. That includes all the way through the supply chain back upstream to the suppliers. You have to make sure you have the processes in place, even if technically speaking, they don't fall under your jurisdiction. They do, because it's your name that's on the final package. So I also mentioned integrated business process integration. Again, the left hand has to talk to the right. You know, I mentioned throughout this presentation so far, supply chains are changing dramatically. They're changing the way we do business. They're changing what you have to do to keep your business running. And one of the key areas that you need to focus on is your actual manufacturing operations. There are many businesses that have multiple manufacturing facilities, and the complete product isn't necessarily made at one location. So that's a supply chain in itself. And to make sure those issues and the production sequences are accurately being executed, those machines have to be kept running. So we need to implement lean principles. We need to make sure that our production schedules are matching our maintenance schedules, because many manufacturers are starting to run shorter run products because of such product proliferation that is out there. We've noticed that in COVID, people's taste has changed. And I have one customer who's in the frozen fish industry who said, Steve, it is insane. COVID hit, my food service business went out the window. My retail business increased by double. However, people started buying things they didn't normally buy. The normal top selling items didn't move. So we had to start building more products and have to start moving better inventories of these things that we didn't buy. So the processes had to be integrated along with the systems. So we help you match the systems to your processes, and with that change management as you move and as you grow throughout. Our industry is very heavily focused on metrics, and QAD allows you, and we have key KPIs that can help manage your business and help direct you to the areas that need to have attention. So I think we have another poll coming up here shortly. So I just covered some 5 key areas where QAD can help, and we kind of came up here with some questions to ask you if you need assistance currently, or if you think you might in the future with issues potentially moving to the cloud, managing your suppliers, as we see, you know, in the news today, supplier issues, keeping your supply chain connected, or do you need help with all the above? You may not need assistance with anything right now, but who can predict the future? So as you folks are answering those, and I see we have a couple who are saying you need all the above, supply chain has to be connected, it's critical. So these are really some good results here. I want to move in now for the balance of my piece of the presentation, talk about some success stories that we've had. So we had a producer of shelf-stable food that had high operating costs. Their communication with their trading partners was very poor, and it was all manual. And their supply chain planning system was pretty much at the end of its ropes. It was on the way out. So they needed to integrate their supply chain. They needed to communicate better with their trading partners. And at the same point in time, they had to make sure their operating costs were reduced. And through adaptive ERP from QAD, the Dynasis DSCP tools, and QAD EDI Commerce, they were able to increase forecasting accuracy, and they were able to manage their inventories, especially on the perishable side from the ingredients, because even though they were shelf stable, they start with perishable ingredients. And they were able to communicate better with trading partners and onboard not only new suppliers, but new customers quickly. So this is some of the benefits that they were able to receive. We had a fresh food manufacturer who was having a hard time managing the ERP globally because they got ingredients from different countries, and they also shipped fresh products to different companies. And when you're shipping fresh products across borders, that is a nightmare unlike anything else. They had very limited visibility of what was going on in the supply chain. And internally, they were not integrated. There were silos in between these functions. So through adaptive ERP and through the cloud, they were able to get communication better internally, which allowed them to get the product externally and cross these borders faster and quicker to keep the integrity of the product. They're able to grow the business. They now have a complete ERP system on the cloud. They have support 24/7 for that business. And internally, the users through our graphical user interface are able to do their jobs a lot quicker, a lot better, and faster. Now, at the same time, we had a frozen food company, and I kind of gave you a little hint before when I talked about frozen fish. They needed to improve getting the right product to the right place at the right time. And they also needed to streamline the inventories and make sure that they didn't waste food product, because let's face it, fish goes bad fast. And at the same point in time, it's very expensive. So they needed to make sure that that SKU level forecasting was accurate. And they needed to make sure in an industry that's heavily regulated that they met the compliance standards. So through QAD Adaptive ERP, through automated solutions, they also use demand and supply chain planning, which is not on this slide. I apologize for that. That should be here. They were able to improve all aspects of the supply chain management. They were able to integrate their business processes with their software solutions. They were able to meet compliance with full lot traceability and serialization. And they were able to improve that item level forecasting, which improved their customer service, but also reduced inventories and increased their profits. So some pretty interesting information here. And we just got some of the updated results of the polls, and it looks that for the most part, most of you are having issues with all three: managing your suppliers, moving to the cloud, and keeping that supply chain connected. And I'm not surprised, because if you listen to the news, again, this is what you're facing today. So why are companies like you working with QAD and our partner YASH? Well, we have the solutions that meet the needs of the food and beverage industry. We know the issues that you're having. We can anticipate some of the issues that you're gonna have, and we can integrate those systems to your business processes and help that software adapt to how your business has to change. We have the ability to help you effectively manage your inventory and balance that with your demand and synchronize it. We have industry best practices through process mapping, again, that can help you manage your business the way it has to be managed to be a successful food and beverage manufacturer today, where profits are low and costs are high. And most importantly, we have the ability to help you manage those changing regulatory standards, which seem to change every day and are getting more demanding and tougher to implement and maintain while keeping your profits. And one of our customers here, Wander, who makes shelf-stable products, they're in a business of making excellent products, but they needed a partner to help them compete technologically. And through QAD Cloud and interactive DSCP, they were able to balance and synchronize both the digital and physical supply chain and upgrade solutions to be able to modernize their facilities to meet the changing market demands. So hopefully we can help you as well. So now I'm going to throw it back over to my friends at YASH, who are going to talk to you about how we integrate these solutions with their practices that I've been talking about for the last 30 minutes.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. This is Yanar I'm the practice lead at YASH. Next, please. See, YASH as a global system integrator and channel partner with QAD, we have been delivering QAD services to many industries with more focus on automotive, consumer products, life sciences, and food and beverages. YASH as an organization with its 24 years of experience, in the last few years, we have been delivering a lot of integration projects for QAD, covering Dell Boomi and RPA for bot developments for many of our customers. And we have also integrated mobile application integrations with QAD, which is one of its kind with QAD. YASH as an organization, have been delivering projects on the latest QAD's adaptive ERP and also the different other versions of Enterprise Edition and Standard Edition, cutting across different QAD modules of distribution, manufacturing, and finance. Having said that, YASH also has experience on delivering projects covering CRM, transportation management solutions, and automation solutions for data collection and label printing services for our customers. And we also have an expertise on the basic progress for generation language, QAD reporting framework for reporting purposes, ICT, which is basically a toolkit for fixes and changes, and e-customizations when customers move on to cloud. And EDI is one of our very important focus area where we work for many of our customers from the distribution side. QExtend is another integration tool where we work on application-to-application integration of QAD. These are the, at a high level, these are the different skill sets. As an organization, as a global system integrator, we offer various QAD services to our customers, from cloud migration to managed services, where we take the responsibility of the entire seat to shelf of customer requirement, and global rollouts using global templates and core models by QAD, different upgrades and data migration services, and typical implementation services covering QAD. One of the most important services what we offer to our customers globally is the shared support services, where a team of techno-functional QAD consultants take care of more than one customer globally. This basically helps customers who have tighter IT budgets. So these are the whole gamut of services what YASH offers to our customers. And to manage all these services across the globe, we have our QAD resources cutting across the globe, with more focus on the United States and in India, with a few resources in Germany, in Mexico, Brazil, and UK. So these resources just don't come with QAD technical or functional expertise. They come with a lot of business process expertise cutting across different industry vertical, where we are able to understand customers' pain points and then map with QAD solutions. This is the kind of work we do at YASH. Thank you. Over to you, Steve.
Steve, you're on mute.
Oh, I apologize for that. One of the things, thanks, Anar, for that. I wanted to just mention before we jump into questions, that description of the services that YASH offers is very important when you're pairing it with the QAD software, because one of the things that I'm very pleased with, having been in your shoes, having worked in this industry, is the YASH consultants and the people that you're going to be dealing with throughout your engagements, but not only through just the engagements of implementing a practice or a software or a process, but just the ongoing day-to-day life cycle of using QAD, is they understand the business. They understand what you're talking about in food and beverage, manufacturing. Let's face it, all verticals that we support, they have some basic tenets to it that are the same across the board. But in food and beverage manufacturing, there are terms, there's language, there's processes that are only fit food and beverage manufacturers. So we have to be aware of those when we're dealing with your business. And that's what I think makes YASH a very good partner and QAD a very good partner for them, is we understand the issues that you're running into today and can help you work in the future for the next challenges down the road. And you know they're going to be there. I can guarantee you that. So with that, I'd like to open it up. Harry, do we have any questions out there from our folks today?
Yes, Steve, we do have a few questions that have come up. I think it's the post-COVID era. I wouldn't say post, but at least hoping that it will get to post-COVID era very soon. So people are definitely interested in what are the disruptive challenges that we are seeing out in the marketplace, and how QAD can help mitigate these challenges. And pretty much everyone must be having this kind of question come up. So this is something which I feel many F&B manufacturers must be facing. So I think it's a more generic question than specific here.
Right. Well, that's a very good question. You know, I was actually on the phone with a business in the food business industry a couple weeks ago. And I was with one of our account managers, and we were talking to them, and in the middle of the conversation, the person said to me, "Do you folks do anything with 3D printing?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean? What exactly do you mean?" Through our QAD automated solutions, we can integrate with 3D printers and printing labels and then actually printing things. But what are you asking? He said, "Can you print me up some workers? If you can't 3D print me some workers," he goes, "right now is not the right time to talk because I have an issue with transportation with workers." And that's a really good point what he made. However, with integrated business process and systems, we can help you at least minimize the effects of worker shortages, making sure your resources are being used for the right things, having a sophisticated forecasting system that will help you get better, accurate forecasts. So those limited resources that you do have, you can put to the right products, and through accurate distribution tools and processes, you can get them to the right place. Now, you can't make anything if you don't have the right ingredients, if you don't have the right materials. And as we showed you in that first slide and what you're seeing in the news today, one of the issues we're dealing with as an industry are supply, and not just food and beverage, all manufacturers, supplier of key raw materials. Traditionally in food and beverage manufacturing, sometimes we use the same material suppliers for years. Well, that's changing because they're running into problems. Their supply chains are breaking down. So you need to be able to onboard a supplier quickly, and they have to meet certain criteria, especially when we're dealing with these quality challenges. So we have the tools and capabilities to help you switch gears if you need to on the supplier side. And at the same point in time, we have the tools to help make sure that you're vertically and horizontally integrated, not just internally through your organization, but through the supply chain. Now, with all these problems that you're having, the first place that's going to get hit are your profits. And you're going to have to make changes to your manufacturing schedules, and you're probably running smaller production runs. So through the QAD-based manufacturing tools that we offer, we can help you minimize the effects on those assets and manage internally the operations management to make sure that you get the right product to the right place at the right time. Do we have answers to all the solutions that you're facing today? No, but the goal is to help you minimize those and help you work around those.
Great, thank you, Steve. We have the next question coming in from Andre. What are the main differentiators between QAD and Oracle, Microsoft ERP? In general, I think he's looking at differentiators between QAD and other ERP solutions.
Right. So one of the things when you talk about those companies, what we offer at QAD is the complete, and then if you partner up with YASH, for example, us and YASH, we offer complete services throughout, not just an implementation, for example, if you're going to buy a module or the complete ERP, but we're partners with you from forever. And I think we take a lot of pride in that. And YASH takes a lot of pride in that, that we're not just going to simply come in, and we're not just software jockeys. We're not going to come in, charge you a lot of money for services, sell you things that you can't use, and then just walk away. And then you're stuck with this massive ERP that turns into like an anchor on a ship. We're going to come in and build a solution for you with the capabilities that you need, and only those capabilities that you need. Now, we offer a wide range of solutions, just like some of these competitors of ours, and we can pretty much sell you from soup to nuts, but at the same point in time, it might be overkill. And we want to grow your processes into those offerings rather than hit you up with the offerings first. So I think that's the biggest differentiator that we provide for you, is that partnership and that mentality of succeeding as a business, not just from a standpoint of software.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that, Steve. Andre has follow-up question on, is QAD fully priced by module, or is it, they have to buy separate modules? I know the pricing could be a little bit sensitive, but if you could at least answer if they can buy individual modules or together.
Well, what we do is, and we can direct the more specific issues to one of the appropriate people in our sales group who have these answers a little more specific than I do. But I will tell you this, we do have what we call bundles. So just like I mentioned for the answer to the previous question, once we go through and we do a complete discovery from top to bottom, you tell us what you need and what you think you need, and we're going to go through, and again, if we're partnering with YASH on this, we're going to get really detailed in terms of an entire analytic discovery, in terms of what you need, in terms of maybe new business processes and the software tools. And we do have package bundles that can meet certain requirements, and I know some of the pricing is based on that as well. And we can, I believe they can kind of get creative. That's the limited, unfortunately, of my expertise with that area, but we can certainly, through your contact information, if you'd like that basic question answered, we can get that answered for you.
Yep, absolutely. That's good summary of it. I think I know more from a similar kind of a follow-up question that is coming up from another participant, is about, if you are looking for new ERP system with comparable add-on solutions, what key areas should we first address?
Well, I think the key areas, and again, in the past, and it's kind of like what I talked about during my presentation, years ago, everybody was about safety stocks and economic order quantities, and you have to have 3 weeks of this, 3 weeks of that. And then we moved to just in time, and then we were talking about SNOP and then not SNOP. And years ago, people wanted their ERP providers to have everything, to provide them everything. And then they realized that, it's kind of like the medical industry. If you don't feel well, you go to your doctor, and the doctor runs some tests, and he gives you your general practitioner, and he gives you, he looks to try to figure out what's going on. And then he says, you know what, Harry, your real issue is your knee, so I'm going to send you to your orthopedic. Or Steve, I don't know if if your heart's beating right, so I'm going to send you to a cardiologist. And so the industry went, and they were getting these point solutions. However, when you end up going to that, it kind of looks like Clark Griswold's garage in Christmas Vacation. You have all these wires, and there's really no control. So now the industry is kind of coming back to where they want the ERP solution to have expert point solutions or partners with those that simplifies the integration. So at QAD, like I mentioned, in terms of the base differentiators, trade activity management. Our trade activity management module is really geared to help you manage the entire life cycle of a promotion. The supply chain management, I would start there, because today everything is about the supply chain. Historical forecasting, well, not to be sarcastic, but it's history. When is the next time a historical forecast is going to be worth anything? 3, 4, 5, 6 years? Because through the buying patterns that has happened with COVID, all bets are off, with companies having to increase and change and add new products. So you have to be adaptable, and you have to be able to manage those changes in supply chain. So first and foremost, from a point solution, I would get your supply chain. And then, and I said it a bunch of times during this conversation, I'm a big food quality guy. I'm really big into track traceability, serialization. The Food Safety Modernization Act is getting pushed very hard today, and it focuses on documentation practices. So I believe our quality management systems, when combined with our traceability and serialization, is the best in the industry. So those are the areas I would focus on, in addition to the basic ERP functionality and solutions.
Sure. I think we have time for just one more question. And probably you already alluded to some of this in your previous topic discussion, but people would like to know, how are companies addressing the logistics around lack of available transportation? And especially in the post-COVID era, I think we're seeing this happen more and more often, where I think shipping is suffering sometimes, and logistics are becoming a nightmare for some of the trucking companies, with specifically lack of drivers and so on. So,
right.
Yeah.
And this is a really interesting question, because it actually opens up a number of different subjects. Number one, risk management. And that's one thing, I apologize, folks, I really didn't necessarily really address, but that's another area where QAD and YASH can help you, is having the things in place in case something happens. Like they say, most households don't buy a fire extinguisher until you have a kitchen fire. Risk management is critical, and it can help manage certain issues. And for example, like this transportation. And it's funny, when you talk about COVID, if you go out in public today, and if all of a sudden you put your hand to your mouth because you're going to cough, if you're near a crowd, 50 people look at you like you just committed a felony, because everybody's like, oh my God, does he have COVID? Well, let's face it, folks, people got sick before COVID. There's certain things that are mushrooming today. There's certain things that are getting highlighted because of COVID that existed before COVID. And transportation is one of them. We've been having transportation issues, especially in the US, for almost 5 years. People don't want to become truck drivers anymore. They don't want to be truck drivers anymore. With the regulations the government has put on in terms of the maximum hours truck drivers can drive, that is extended transportation times. And then, of course, if you add on the fact that with the online buying and the e-commerce has pretty much strapped the number of vehicles that we've had, well, that's been there. COVID has just exacerbated it, because we don't have these parts to ship. So when we do, we're at a shortage to begin with. So what companies are doing is, companies, just like I said, it's that cyclical S&OP, economic order quantity, big fat ties in the 70s are now coming back. The same thing with company-owned fleets. The company I used to work for in the 80s and 90s, we had our own transportation fleet for our food and beverage products. That went away in the 2000s. We went to 3PLs. Now manufacturers, larger manufacturers, are looking to potentially have their own fleets, or a different sector of private. Target, the retailer, said that they were hiring their own ships for dedicated shipments, so they didn't have to share ship transportation with other customers because of the bottlenecks. So people are looking to become creative, and people are looking to handle those issues. Another one, and I briefly mentioned in my presentation, that you want to look at is for example, if you're having a hard time getting product long distances, rather than shipping it from one manufacturing facility, investigate co-packing, contract manufacturer who could be a partner for you, and you can get your products to the marketplace quicker. So hopefully that answered that question. Back to you, Harry.
Sure, Steve. Thank you very much. Yes, and we are on top of the hour, and it's wonderful information that you provided, Steve. And I do thank NR and Gary for being co-participants. And I appreciate everyone who has joined this webinar. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day, and look forward to getting more information via email from my colleagues, which will have follow-up accessibility to this webinar recording as well as Q&A. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice day.